You know that feeling? When the world just closes in on you. The walls feel like they're breathing, the air gets thick, and every second stretches out into an eternity of dread. That's what an interrogation room feels like. It's designed for it. It's not just the cold metal table bolted to the floor, or the single, harsh light bulb buzzing overhead. It's the smell, a mix of stale coffee, cheap disinfectant, and fear. Always fear. And in one of those rooms, on a night that felt like it would never end, sat a woman named Dr. Alana King. A professor, a brilliant mind who spent her life studying justice. And right then, she was getting a brutal, first-hand lesson in exactly how unjust that system could be. Across from her sat Lieutenant Mark Brennan. He wasn't just a cop. He was a storm contained in a uniform. And he was about to break. "You know," he said, his voice a low, gravelly thing, filled with pure hate. "At the end of the day, you'll never be anything but a black woman who forgot her place." And then he moved. Fast. His hand, a meaty hammer, slammed the side of her head, smashing her face down into that cold, hard table. The sound? Oh, the sound was awful. A sharp, sickening crack. When he pulled her head back, blood was already pouring from her nose, tracing a dark red line down her chin. A single, perfect drop of it splashed onto the official warrant lying on the table, right next to the fresh, elegant signature of Judge Harold Croft. Brennan didn't even flinch. He just grabbed a plastic pitcher of ice water and tossed it right in her face. The water mixed with the blood, turning pink, soaking her blouse, her hair. "Consider this your final lesson, Professor," he sneered. "The classroom is closed. Now, if this was a movie, this is where our hero would scream, or cry, or fight back. But Alana did none of those things. She just sat there. She tasted the copper tang of her own blood, felt the cold steel of the handcuffs biting into her wrists. But her mind was somewhere else entirely. It was calculating. It was counting. You see, the evidence against her was a joke. A laughable, flimsy lie. Drugs and stolen police files, planted in her office by men who thought they were being slick. This was a frame job. A conspiracy between three powerful cops and a corrupt judge, all terrified that her research was about to expose their little empire of lies. They thought they were so smart, but they had made three huge mistakes. First, they had grabbed the wrong woman. They saw a professor, a thinker. They didn't see the fighter, the sister of a man they'd already destroyed. Second, they were sloppy. Arrogant people are always sloppy. And third, most importantly, as they brutalized her, they had no idea what she was really doing. Her eyes, through the swelling and the blood, were noting the positions of the security cameras. She was memorizing the time on the clock, cross-referencing it with the warrant. Every illegal act, every threat, was being catalogued. Judge Croft's signature on that warrant? He thought it was her career's death certificate. Alana's eyes narrowed slightly. They'd call her something very different soon, boss. But let's rewind. Just 1 week. 1 week earlier, Alana was in a completely different world. Mayor Rafael Silva's office was all polished mahogany, floor-to-ceiling windows, and the quiet, powerful hum of things getting done. Sunlight streamed in, catching the dust motes dancing in the air. It was the exact opposite of that cold interrogation room. Alana sat across from the mayor, the city's first Latino mayor, a man with kind eyes but a spine of steel. He slid a heavy, confidential folder across the desk. It sounded like a verdict. "Thank you for coming, Dr. King," he said, his voice low and serious. "I apologize for the secrecy." Alana opened the folder. Inside was a report, a damning, horrifying report. It laid out a network of corruption in the Riverport Police Department that made her stomach turn. 15 officers, 3 judges, countless lives just broken, families torn apart by falsified evidence, coerced confessions, stolen years. The mayor pointed to a specific case file paper clipped to the back. His finger tapped it gently, including your brothers. And just like that, the sunny, powerful room vanished. Alana's breath hitched in her throat. Her fingers, usually so steady, trembled as they traced the heavy mayoral seal on the paper. Jeremiah, her little brother, her funny, bright, basketball-loving brother, sentenced to 20 years for a drug charge that made no sense. The evidence had just appeared. The warrant was signed in record time. His lawyer seemed overwhelmed. It was like watching a steamroller crush a flower. He'd lost a decade of his life to their lies. That's why I need you, Dr. King, Mayor Silva continued, his voice dropping to a near whisper. The police commissioner position. It's yours, if you want it. The only sound in the huge office was the slow, steady tick-tick, tick of the wall clock. Each second was a pendulum swinging between her old life. The lectures, the research, the quiet, and this new, terrifying responsibility. Her eyes drifted from the report to another file on the mayor's desk. This one was sealed and stamped with the FBI logo. It was labeled Judge Harold Croft. The pieces, all the pieces were right there. The appointment becomes official in 72 hours, the mayor explained. But I need you to keep it completely confidential until the public announcement. If this leaks, they'll circle the wagons, Alana finished, her voice quiet but clear. She straightened her spine. The moment of fear passed, replaced by a cold, hard resolve that felt like steel settling in her bones. I understand the need for secrecy, Mr. Mayor, but I'd like to finish my current research project first. It documents, in painstaking detail, every corrupt case Lieutenant Brennan and his crew have touched. It's the final piece. The mayor's brow furrowed with genuine concern. Alana, that's dangerously proactive. If they suspect, they won't, she interrupted, and her voice carried an absolute, unshakable certainty that made the mayor pause. They'll see exactly what they expect to see. Just another academic, another critic, poking around the edges of a system she doesn't understand. They're arrogant. It's their greatest weakness. And if they come after you? The mayor pressed, leaning forward. A thin, cold smile touched Alana's lips. It didn't reach her eyes. Let them. Every move they make against me, every threat, every attempt to discredit or frame me, will become another exhibit in the case against them. They'll be building their own prison, brick by brick. The mayor studied her for a long, long moment. Then he gave a slow, decisive nod. He unlocked a drawer in his desk and withdrew a single sheet of heavy, cream-colored paper. The appointment letter. It looked like a diploma. He offered her a fountain pen. It felt heavy, like a tool. Or a weapon. Alana took it. These men, Brennan, Fletcher, Croft, they thought they were untouchable, gods in their blue uniformed pantheon. But they had never faced someone who understood their system, their procedures, their psychology, better than they did themselves. She signed her name. Dr. Alana King. The ink was dark and permanent. It felt like justice. Mayor Silva took the letter, sealed it inside an official envelope, and handed it to her. Through the thick paper, she could feel the distinct, hard shape of a badge. "When do you plan to tell them?" he asked. "At the perfect moment," Alana said, her voice barely a whisper but filled with iron. "When it's too late for them to run, to hide, or to cover their tracks. When the trap has already sprung." She held the envelope, feeling the weight of the metal inside. That badge wouldn't just give her authority. It would give her the power to deliver the justice Jeremiah and countless others had been denied. They thought they would be framing a harmless professor. They were actually framing their future commissioner. Jeremiah had lost 10 years of his life. They were about to lose everything. The Riverport Police Headquarters was a monument to raw power. A big, brutal block of concrete and glass that seemed to hum with a low, intimidating frequency. The next day, Dr. Alana King walked through the main security checkpoint. She looked the part. University credentials around her neck, a leather satchel full of papers, the picture of an academic on a research trip. A little out of place, perfectly harmless. The receptionist directed her to the 3rd floor with a bored wave. And as the elevator doors opened, he was already there, waiting, like a spider. "Dr. King," Lieutenant Mark Brennan said. A shark smile plastered on his face. It was all teeth, no warmth. He extended a hand, but his eyes were doing a cold, quick assessment of her. A threat evaluation. And he clearly found her rating to be very, very low. "The department appreciates your interest in our procedures. Always happy to help the academic community." Alana shook his hand firmly. "My criminal justice students benefit immensely from understanding real-world applications, Lieutenant. Textbooks can only teach so much." He led her into a sterile, cold conference room. The air smelled like old coffee and ambition. 2 other officers were waiting. One of them rose. Where Brennan was brute force, this man was calculated ice. Captain David Fletcher, Internal Affairs. His badge gleamed under the harsh lights. His handshake was a test, deliberately crushing a little too long. "Academics often misunderstand the complexities of police work, Dr. King," Fletcher said, his voice a flat, cold thing. "No welcome in it. I'm here to ensure accuracy. That's exactly why I'm conducting interviews rather than relying on second-hand data or assumptions," Alana replied smoothly, pulling her hand back. She opened her laptop, positioning it just so. "May I record our conversation for research purposes? It ensures I don't misquote anyone." Brennan and Fletcher shared a quick, knowing glance. A silent conversation passed between them in a split second. "Department policy requires pre-approval for any recordings," Brennan said, his tone final. A door slammed shut. "Of course, procedure is important," Alana said without even a flicker of argument. She closed the laptop and pulled out a simple, leather-bound notebook and a pen. "I'll take notes the old-fashioned way." The interview started like a slow, boring waltz. Alana asked routine questions about departmental structure, report filing hierarchies, case assignment protocols. Brennan answered with rehearsed, almost bored precision. Captain Fletcher just watched her. His eyes never left her. He was a hawk, and he was trying to figure out if she was a mouse or something else. After about 20 minutes of this, Alana flipped a page in her notebook. The sound was loud in the quiet room. "Let's discuss your clearance rates," she said, her tone still light, academic. "I've been analyzing public data, and there appears to be a significant statistical anomaly in drug cases that are ultimately prosecuted in Judge Croft's court. The conviction rate is nearly perfect, but the rate of evidence suppression motions is curiously low." Brennan's posture stiffened. "Just a little. Just a tightening of the shoulders. Statistics can be misleading without proper context, Professor. Paper doesn't always reflect the street." "I completely agree," Alana said, offering a professional, disarming smile. "That's why I'd like to examine some specific case files from the last 3 years, particularly cases involving first-time offenders who received maximum sentences. It would provide that crucial context you're talking about." Fletcher leaned forward, folding his arms on the table. Those files require special clearance. Level 4 authorization. Another door. Another lock. I understand, Alana said. She reached into her briefcase, a calm, slow movement, and slid a single sheet of paper across the table. It was an official permission letter from the district attorney's office. I've already received clearance, specifically for cases where evidence was collected by your narcotics unit, Lieutenant Brennan. I want you to picture this. I want you to feel the temperature in that room drop about 10 degrees. Brennan's jaw tightened. His eyes flickered from the letter to her face and back to the letter. He was thrown off his script. I'll need to verify this with the DA's office directly, he said, his voice a little tighter now. Of course. Protocol, Alana said, closing her notebook with a soft thump. While you do, perhaps I could speak with some of your patrol officers. Get a ground-level view of daily procedures? Fletcher nodded, his face an unreadable mask. I'll arrange it. Outside the conference room, a young officer was waiting. He looked uncomfortable, like his uniform didn't quite fit right yet. Officer Ben Carter will assist you for the remainder of your visit, Fletcher said, and his tone made it very clear. This wasn't assistance. This was surveillance. Officer Carter led her through the maze of the building. His answers to her questions were at first short, by the book. But as Alana asked him not about stats, but about people, about community engagement, about procedural fairness, about how it felt to be a cop on the beat, his answers became more thoughtful, more real. You don't sound like most professors, he admitted as they paused by a water cooler. All around them, the hallway was a theater of whispered conversations that stopped as they passed, only to start up again behind their backs. How many professors have you met, Officer Carter? Alana asked, taking a sip of water. Not many, he conceded with a slight, reluctant smile. Alana noticed his gaze linger on a framed photo on the wall. It showed a younger, leaner Brennan receiving a commendation from a beaming police chief. Something flickered across Carter's face. It wasn't admiration. It was doubt. That case made Lieutenant Brennan's career, Carter explained quietly. Major drug bust. He has an impressive conviction record. Alana nodded. I've seen the numbers. No cases overturned on appeal, either. A remarkable track record. Carter hesitated. For a beat too long. None that I know of, he said. And that tiny qualification, asterisk that I know of asterisk, hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. A door down the hall opened. Brennan emerged, his expression thunderous. He strode right toward them, his presence making the hallway chatter die completely. Your research has some serious methodological flaws, Dr. King, he announced, his voice loud, making sure everyone could hear. You're cherry-picking cases to support a predetermined narrative. It's biased scholarship. Alana didn't back up an inch. She was a calm island in the storm of his anger. I'm simply following the evidence, Lieutenant. Where it leads. That's what good investigators do, isn't it? Your so-called evidence lacks all context. Brennan stepped closer, invading her space, using his size to try and intimidate her. I've read your previous papers. You have a clear bias against law enforcement. I have a bias toward justice, Alana corrected him, her voice cool and clear. And sometimes that requires asking uncomfortable questions. Fletcher appeared at Brennan's shoulder like a ghost. A silent, menacing shadow. We've reviewed your request. Those case files are part of ongoing, sensitive investigations. Access is denied. That directly contradicts the DA's authorization, Alana stated, not looking away from Brennan. Take it up with them, Brennan said with a cold, nasty smile. We're done here for today. Officer Carter shifted his weight uncomfortably. Brennan noticed. Carter, escort Dr. King out. Make sure she signs out properly at the front desk. Every visitor must be accounted for. It was a petty, final power play. In the elevator going down, Carter stood stiffly, staring at his own reflection in the doors. You've been here 3 years, Officer Carter? Alana asked. He nodded, still not looking at her. Yes, ma'am. You believe in the oath you took? She asked softly. To protect and serve? To uphold the Constitution? The elevator dinged, and the doors slid open. Carter finally turned and met her eyes. And for the first time, she saw him. Not a cop, not a rookie, but a young man who once believed in something. Every word of it, ma'am, he said. And he meant it. Alana reached into her jacket and handed him a simple, elegant business card. If you ever want to discuss what that oath means in detail, my office hours are listed on the back. From across the lobby, Brennan watched Carter escort her out. His phone was already pressed to his ear. We have a problem, he muttered to the person on the other end, his voice low and venomous. The professor knows too much. He thought he was setting a trap. He thought he was warning his allies, controlling the narrative. But he was actually building his own cage. Nail by nail. They would watch her every move, but they had no idea she was counting their every mistake. The evidence they planned to plant would become Exhibit A in their own prosecution. Dr. King's university office was her sanctuary. Books, journals, the quiet hum of her computer. A place for thinking. That night, campus security cameras saw 3 men in generic maintenance uniforms enter the building. They had toolboxes. They had work orders with a forged signature. They thought they were invisible. 2 hours later, Alana returned from a late night at the library. She unlocked her door, flipped on the light, and she knew, immediately, the air was wrong. It smelled faintly of stale cigarette smoke and cheap cologne. The papers on her desk were a fraction of an inch off. Her eyes, trained to notice details, caught a fresh, small scuff mark on her bookshelf. Her gaze drifted to the top corner of the room, to a small, discreet lens nearly hidden behind a stack of books. Her own camera, a precaution that was about to pay off. She didn't panic. She walked in, placed her bag on a chair, and calmly opened her top desk drawer. And there it was, sitting right on top of her research notes, like it belonged there. A clear plastic bag full of a white, powdery substance. Next to it, a thick folder stamped Confidential, Riverport PD. She didn't touch them. She just took out her phone and dialed campus security. Her voice was steady. This is Dr. King. I need to report a break-in. I believe evidence has been planted in my office. The response was too fast, and the cars that screeched up outside weren't campus security. They were Riverport PD cruisers. Brennan burst through her doorway, waving a search warrant. Anonymous tip about stolen files and narcotics, he announced, for the benefit of everyone now gathering in the hall. Judge Croft was very concerned. His officers searched with this theatrical, over-the-top thoroughness, and of course, they found exactly what they planted. Camera flashes popped. The drugs and files were bagged and tagged. Dr. Alana King, Brennan said, his voice full of fake solemnity. You are under arrest. He snapped the cuffs on way too tight. You have the right to remain silent. He gave her the walk of shame. Down the hall, past her students, her colleagues. Their whispers followed her. Professor King arrested drugs. Director Fletcher was waiting by the car, a tiny smirk on his face. It vanished when Alana looked right at him. There was no fear in her eyes. No panic. Just a cold, calculating stillness that unnerved him more than any scream ever could. "Your research is being confiscated," he said. "I assume you have a warrant for my intellectual property," she replied. "It's all perfectly legal," Brennan said loudly. "Unlike your activities." The ride to the precinct was silent. Alana stared out the window, working through plans in her head. Brennan watched her in the rearview mirror, mistaking her calm for defeat. At the station, during processing, she saw him. Officer Carter. At a desk. His eyes went wide with shock and confusion before he quickly looked away, his face a conflict of emotions. And then, near midnight, she arrived. Judge Harold Croft. She signed more warrants without even reading them. Preliminary hearing Thursday. No bail. Flight risk. She said it like she was ordering coffee. She didn't even look at Alana. The cell door clanged shut. The sound was so final. Alana sat on the thin, hard bunk, back straight, face unreadable. Down the hall, she could almost hear it. The pop of a champagne cork. Muted laughter. The clinking of glasses. That should end her little investigation, Brennan's voice carried. Who's going to believe a drug-using professor who steals files? Fletcher laughed. They were celebrating, toasting her downfall. Alana lay back and stared at the stained ceiling tiles. Every piece was right where she needed it to be. Their glasses might as well have been filled with the evidence that would drown them. The handcuffs had been cold, but not as cold as the justice that was coming. Her new office was already waiting. They just didn't know it was the commissioner's. Officer Ben Carter couldn't sleep. He was in the evidence room, the arrest video playing on his monitor for the third time. Something was wrong. It itched at his brain. The anonymous tip, 10:37 p.m. The warrant approval, 10:42 p.m. 5 minutes. 5 minutes for a judge to review evidence and approve a search warrant? Impossible. It took hours. Days even. He paused the video, zooming in on Dr. King's face as they found the drugs. There was no surprise there. There was expectation. His cursor hovered over the database. He typed a name, King Jeremiah. The file loaded. A decade-old drug case. Maximum sentence. Judge Harold Croft. Prosecutor David Fletcher. Arresting officer Mark Brennan. Appeals denied. Claims of planted evidence dismissed. The parallels made him feel sick. At 3 a.m., the cell block was silent. Carter nodded to the night guard, holding up a clipboard. Forgot a property form. Gotta have her sign it. The guard, half asleep, just waved him through. Dr. King was sitting on her bunk, awake. She looked like she'd been expecting him. "Officer Carter," she said. Her voice was calm. No fear. No desperation. "Working late? Paperwork," he said, his voice too loud. He glanced at the security camera in the corner. Its red light was off. Maintenance said the cameras in this wing are down. Should be back on by morning. It was a signal. A clear one. "I looked up your brother's case," Carter said quietly, stepping closer to the bars. "Did you find it educational?" she asked. "I found it familiar," he said, the words tasting like ash. "Same judge. Same cops. Same miraculous evidence. Quite the coincidence." "Do you believe in coincidences, Officer Carter?" "Less and less every day," he admitted. He took a breath. It was now or never. "The department. It isn't what I thought it was when I joined." "Few institutions are," she replied. She was studying him, weighing his soul. "Why are you here at 3 a.m., Officer Carter?" "Because something doesn't feel right," he confessed, the words rushing out. The warrant was too fast. The evidence. It was just too convenient. The whole thing, it stinks. He met her gaze, and a resolve hardened in his own. And because my grandfather was a preacher, he taught me that justice is a moral duty, and that sometimes duty means standing against your own. The cell block was dead quiet. Brennan has a system, Carter whispered. He targets people. A journalist. A defense attorney. Now what happens to them? Their lives get ruined. Charges get dropped eventually, but the damage is done. Nobody looks too close at how convenient it all was. Alana nodded. And Fletcher? Fletcher protects him. They're a team. The money, she asked. His task force lives well. Rumors. Cash from drug busts that disappears. Rumors aren't evidence, she stated. Evidence can be found, Carter said, his voice firm, by someone with access. Someone who knows where to look. Alana King looked at this young officer, risking everything. That someone would be taking a huge risk. Maybe that someone is tired of being part of a system that betrays the oath he swore to uphold, Carter said. A door creaked open down the hall. Carter straightened up. Check dashboard camera footage from Unit 22. May 12th, Alana whispered, quick and low. And pull Brennan's financial disclosures after his big busts in 2019. Carter gave a tiny, almost invisible nod. I have to go. Officer Carter, she called softly as he turned. Why? Why risk everything for me? He paused, looking back at her. And for a second, he wasn't a cop. He was just a kid from the neighborhood. Because I recognized your brother's name. I grew up 2 streets over from him. He coached basketball at the community center. Helped my little cousin. He was a good man. I never believed he was guilty. The night guard rounded the corner. Carter immediately raised his voice, becoming the cop again. Like I said, Dr. King, confessing now would make things easier for everyone. He walked away, not looking back. Alana returned to her bunk. Her face was a mask. But inside, the first pieces of her counteroffensive were sliding into place. She was no longer alone behind enemy lines. Officer Ben Carter had just chosen his side. He didn't know it yet, but he wasn't just saving her career. He was saving his own soul. Have you ever waited for a storm to break? That heavy, quiet moment right before the sky turns green and the wind starts to howl? The air feels charged, like anything could happen. That's where we left Dr. Alana King. She was in the eye of the hurricane, sitting in a cold cell, while the men who put her there were celebrating just down the hall. They thought the storm was over. They thought they'd won. But Alana, she was the storm, and she was just about to make landfall. She wasn't alone anymore. Officer Ben Carter, his heart pounding with a mix of fear and purpose, was now her inside man, her secret weapon. And together, they were about to pull on a single thread that would unravel the entire corrupt tapestry of the Riverport Police Department. This is the story of a reckoning. From her home on house arrest, with an electronic monitor clamped to her ankle and a police cruiser parked permanently across the street, Alana King began her work. She'd draw the curtains partway, letting them see just enough. Let them see a disgraced professor, looking tired and defeated, making tea, staring out the window. They thought they were watching a broken woman. They were actually watching a general direct her army from a prison of her own design. Her weapon was a secure laptop. Every keystroke was probably monitored, so she chose her words with the care of a poet planting secret messages. She'd send emails with subject lines like legal defense strategy. But the real message was hidden in the metadata, the attachments, the coded language only her allies would understand. Her most important ally was Ben Carter, off duty, In the quiet of his own home, he accessed the dashboard camera footage from Unit 22, from May 12th, just like she said. And there it was, in grainy, silent color. Brennan and Fletcher, meeting Judge Croft in a deserted parking garage. The body language was tense, secretive. And then it happened. Fletcher handed Croft a thick, business-sized envelope. It wasn't a holiday card. Carter's hands shook as he downloaded the file onto an encrypted drive. This was it. This was the proof. He carefully, meticulously, erased any digital trace that he'd ever been there. He got a text from an unknown number. Asterisk coffee shop. 3 p.m. Asterisk. He went. He sat. A young man, James Chun, one of Alana's most brilliant former students, sat at the next table, never making eye contact. When Carter left, there was a flash drive in his pocket. On it was everything Alana had backed up from her research before they arrested her. The whole case, the entire web of corruption, laid out in spreadsheets and documents. The puzzle pieces were all there. But the most important piece, the one that held the whole ugly picture together, was Judge Harold Croft. Alana knew that to break the system, she had to understand its weakest link. And Croft was crumbling. In a private meeting arranged through back channels, Alana sat across from the judge. No cuffs this time. Just two women in a quiet room. "This meeting is highly irregular," Croft began, her fingers tapping nervously on her desk. "Your attorney should be present." "I wanted to speak to you directly," Alana said, her voice calm but firm. Woman to woman. She leaned forward. "I want to understand why. Why a respected judge with 20 years on the bench would risk everything to frame an academic." Croft's face tightened. "That's absurd. The evidence against you was planted," Alana finished for her. "And we both know it. But that's not why I'm here. I want to know why you're protecting Brennan and Fletcher. You've had a distinguished career. Why throw it all away?" Judge Croft's composure cracked. Just a little. A fine web of fractures spreading across her icy exterior. "You don't understand the situation," she whispered, her eyes darting towards the door. "I understand more than you think," Alana said, sliding a piece of paper across the desk. It was a list of cases where Croft had approved warrants in under 10 minutes. All Brennan cases, all resulting in conveniently discovered evidence. Croft's face went pale. "Where did you get this?" "I also have records of payments from Pinnacle Holdings LLC to your husband's consulting firm," Alana continued, her eyes never leaving Croft's. "Payments that match up perfectly with the dates of major drug busts by Brennan's team." That was the blow that broke her. The judge's shoulders slumped. The proud, powerful woman seemed to shrink right in front of Alana's eyes. When she spoke again, her voice was a broken thing. Fletcher, she corrected herself. "He has photos of my daughter." The story spilled out. Her daughter had struggled with addiction. Fletcher found her buying drugs. He didn't arrest her. He took photos. He told Croft he'd release them, claim her daughter was dealing, destroy the girl's life forever, unless she cooperated. Signed warrants without question. Approved evidence she knew was suspect. "It started small," Croft whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "Just procedural shortcuts. Then it escalated. I tell myself they were all guilty of something. Like my brother Jeremiah was guilty of something?" Alana's voice was soft, but it hit like a hammer. Recognition dawned on Croft's face. "The Washington case. I remember. I denied every appeal." She looked at her hands, ashamed. "Fletcher runs internal affairs. He buries complaints. It's bigger than you realize." "Bigger than Operation Clean Slate?" Alana asked quietly. Croft's head snapped up. How do you know that name? I know everything, Judge Croft, Alana said, leaning back. The question is, what are you going to do now? What can I do? Croft pleaded, desperate. They'll destroy my daughter. Or, Alana said, you can help me end this. Testify. Tell the truth about the coercion, the falsified warrants, all of it. We can protect your daughter. This is your one chance to choose the right side of history. Judge Harold Croft stared at the wall. At an award from the Police Benevolent Association. 20 years of compromise, of corruption, all crystallized in a meaningless piece of wood and brass. What would you need from me? She finally asked, her voice hollow. The truth, Alana said. Start with Brennan's operation. How many officers? How the money flows. Everything. Tears finally fell down Croft's cheeks. She wiped them away with a trembling hand. Fletcher is the key. He built it. Brennan is just his attack dog. The evidence against you, it was completely fabricated on Fletcher's orders. I signed the warrant without reading it. She took a shaky breath. I'll put it in writing. All of it. As Alana left the judge's chambers, she knew. The first domino had been tipped, and it was about to knock down everything in its path. The courtroom was packed. You could feel the tension the moment you walked in. It was a thick, electric buzz in the air. Police officers in uniform lined the back walls. Brennan and Fletcher were among them, looking confident, but tighter than before. Their smiles were a little too sharp, their eyes scanning the room a little too often. They could feel the shift in the air, even if they didn't understand it yet. Dr. Alana King sat beside her attorney, perfectly calm, and in the very front row of the spectators' gallery, wearing a suit that had been kept safe for him for 10 years, sat her brother, Jeremiah. He sat tall. He looked free, even before the verdict. The doors opened. Mayor Silva walked in with his chief of staff and 2 men in sharp, serious suits from the state attorney general's office. Brennan's eyes tracked them. His smirk faded. A cold dread started to creep into his expression. Judge Raymond Hawkins entered. He was known for his integrity, a no-nonsense judge who wasn't from Croft's cozy circle. The room fell silent. Your Honor, Alana's attorney began. Before we address the charges against my client, we move to introduce new evidence of severe misconduct that goes directly to the heart of this case and reveals it to be a malicious conspiracy. The prosecutor shot to his feet. Objection! This hearing is about the charges against Dr. King. Judge Hawkins peered over his glasses. The court will hear it. Proceed. The court calls Officer Ben Carter. A wave of shocked murmurs swept through the room. Asterisk a cop? Testifying for the defense. Asterisk Carter walked to the stand, his uniform crisp, his back straight. He was sworn in, his voice clear and steady. Under questioning, he laid it all out. The impossible 5-minute warrant. The dashboard camera footage from Unit 22. The video played on the courtroom screen for everyone to see. Brennan, Fletcher, and Croft in that shadowy garage. The envelope changing hands. The prosecutor was furious. This footage was obtained illegally. It was obtained during a legitimate internal review I initiated based on probable cause of wrongdoing, Carter stated, his voice gaining strength. My oath required it. Then came the bank records. Transactions from Pinnacle Holdings to accounts linked to Croft's husband. Brennan's boat payments. Fletcher's offshore deposits. The map of money was a map of their corruption. The dam was cracking. You could see it on Brennan's face. The arrogance was melting away, replaced by confusion, then by raw, panicked anger. Your Honor, Alana's attorney said, we have one final witness. The court calls Judge Harold Croft. The room didn't gasp this time. It erupted. You couldn't hear anything over the noise. Judge Hawkins had to bang his gavel over and over again. Order! Order in the court! Brennan half rose from his seat, his face a thundercloud of rage, before his own lawyer yanked him back down. Croft entered. She looked pale, diminished but resolved. She was sworn in, her hands trembling slightly on the Bible. Judge Croft, Alana's attorney began gently. Did you sign a search warrant for Dr. King's office on the night of her arrest? Yes, Croft said, her voice soft but clear. Did you review the supporting evidence? Did you verify probable cause? No, a single devastating word. Why would you do that? And then she told them. She told the whole story. The blackmail, the photos of her daughter, the threats, the years of being Fletcher's puppet, the dozens of cases. She looked right at Jeremiah, her voice breaking, including the case against Marcus King. Jeremiah, 10 years ago, the evidence was planted. I knew it, and I denied every appeal. Jeremiah closed his eyes. A single tear traced a path down his cheek. It wasn't a tear of sadness. It was a tear of release, of vindication after a decade of living a lie. And the charges against Dr. Alana King? Her attorney asked. Completely fabricated, Croft said, her voice strengthening with the truth. They targeted her because her research was uncovering their entire operation. The drugs and files were planted by officers under Brennan's command. I signed the warrant without reading it. I'll put it in writing. All of it. The courtroom was so silent you could hear the hum of the lights. Judge Hawkins removed his glasses. He looked old and tired and deeply disappointed. In light of this testimony, he said, his voice heavy, all charges against Dr. Alana King are dismissed. With prejudice. He turned his gaze to the back of the room. It was like the gaze of an angry god. Bailiff, take Lieutenant Brennan and Director Fletcher into custody, pending formal charges. As the bailiffs moved forward, the spell broke. The room exploded into noise again. Reporters scrambled for the doors. Brennan was sputtering, his face purple with rage. Fletcher was just frozen. His cold, calculated world had just shattered into a million pieces. And then, Mayor Silva approached the bench. Your Honor, with the court's indulgence, he said, I have a brief announcement relevant to these proceedings. Judge Hawkins nodded. The mayor turned to face the packed, chaotic room. He waited for silence. In light of the systemic corruption and profound failure of leadership revealed here today, he announced, his voice ringing with authority, I am appointing new leadership to reform the Riverport Police Department, effective immediately. He turned and gestured toward Alana King. Dr. Alana King has accepted the position of police commissioner. For a second, there was absolute dead silence, and then the room went absolutely wild. But Alana wasn't looking at the crowd. She was looking at Mark Brennan. The look on his face. Oh, that look. It was a thing of pure, terrible beauty. It was the complete and total shattering of a man's reality. The confusion, the disbelief, the dawning, horrifying understanding. The professor he tried to destroy, the woman he thought was beneath him, was now his boss. She held his career, his freedom, his entire future in her hands. The arrogance drained away, replaced by a pathetic, hollowed-out terror. It was the most satisfying thing she had ever seen. As bailiffs led a stunned Brennan and a shell-shocked Fletcher away in handcuffs, Alana walked over to her brother. They didn't say a word. They just embraced. It was a hug 10 years in the making. A hug for all the birthdays missed, the Christmases lost, the pain endured. It was the first step on a long road to healing. Officer Carter stood at attention, awaiting orders from his new commissioner. Alana extended her hand to him. "The department needs officers with your integrity, Ben. How would you feel about heading a new internal integrity unit?" The badge Mayor Silva gave her was cold and heavy in her hand. It wasn't just a symbol of authority. It was a promise of accountability. 1 month later, the commissioner's office felt different. The air was lighter. It smelled like fresh coffee and hope instead of old cigars and corruption. On the wall, alongside Alana's degrees in criminology and law, hung a single photograph. Jeremiah, smiling broadly at his new job, his eyes finally clear of the shadow that had haunted them for a decade. The door opened. Lieutenant Ben Carter, his new rank sitting comfortably on his shoulders, entered with a file. 27 cases identified for review so far, Commissioner, he reported. The DA's office has already moved to vacate 11 convictions. People are going home to their families. Alana nodded, looking over the list of names. Each one was a life disrupted, a family torn apart by the lies of the men she'd just toppled. "And the officers involved?" she asked. "Brennan and Fletcher are still in custody. No bail. 3 others have accepted plea deals in exchange for testimony. 6 more are under investigation." A note of satisfaction crept into his voice. "And Judge Croft resigned from the bench. She's cooperating fully with the federal investigation. Her testimony is going to bring down half the narcotics division." Sunlight streamed through the windows as Alana stood up. "Walk with me, Lieutenant." They moved through the bullpen together. Officers nodded respectfully as they passed. Some smiles were genuine, from the cops who had been waiting for a change, who wanted to serve with honor. Others were still wary, watching the new sheriff in town with cautious eyes. Changing a culture, that doesn't happen overnight. It happens one day, one interaction at a time. They stopped outside a conference room where a new recruit training was underway. The instructor was speaking. "Integrity isn't just a word on the department motto," the trainer said to the young, attentive faces. "It's a daily choice, a commitment, and sometimes it means standing alone against the crowd." Alana entered and took a seat at the back. The recruits immediately stood at attention. "At ease," she said softly. "I just want to listen." A young woman recruit raised her hand. She couldn't have been more than 22. "Commissioner?" she asked, her voice full of earnest hope. How do we rebuild trust after everything that happened?" Alana considered the question carefully. She stood and addressed the entire room. "One interaction at a time," she said, her voice clear and strong. "One case handled with integrity. One citizen treated with respect, even when it's difficult. This badge," she said, touching the star on her chest, "isn't a symbol of power over people. It's a promise to protect them, especially from those who would abuse that same power." After the session, she returned to her office. Mayor Silva was waiting, holding the final report on the corruption network. 17 officers, 4 judges, dozens of cases tainted, he said, shaking his head in disbelief. "It goes deeper than we ever imagined. The FBI found connections to 3 other cities," Alana added, looking out her window at the city she was now sworn to protect. "Your Operation Clean Slate initiative is getting national attention. Other cities are asking for your reform plans." "Reform isn't about revenge, Raphael," she said, turning to him. "It's about rebuilding what was broken." "Speaking of rebuilding," Silva said with a smile, "your brother's foundation for exonerees is gaining real traction. He's got 5 corporate sponsors already." A genuine, warm smile finally broke through Alana's composed exterior. Jeremiah always was the better public speaker. 10 years in prison, and his first thought upon release was how to help others who'd been through the same nightmare. As evening fell, Alana left headquarters. The weight of the badge on her chest still felt new, different from the professor's lanyard she'd worn for so long. She found Jeremiah waiting for her in the car. "How was your day, Commissioner?" he asked, a playful smile on his face. "Long good. Yours?" "3 new guys joined the support group," he said, starting the engine. "Men who lost years to Brennan and Fletcher. They're finding their way back. Just like me." They drove in a comfortable, quiet silence for a moment. The city lights began to twinkle on, reflecting off the buildings, painting the twilight in shades of orange and gold. "Was it worth it?" Jeremiah asked softly, the smile fading. "Letting them arrest you? Putting yourself through all that, when you could have just exposed them from the mayor's office? It was so dangerous." Alana watched her city go by. Her city now. They needed to feel it, she said after a long moment. They needed to feel the same powerlessness they inflicted on you. On so many others. Some lessons can only be taught through experience. Jeremiah nodded. "Mom would be proud. Dad too." "They'd be prouder of you," Alana said, reaching over and squeezing his hand. "You kept your humanity through all of it. That's the real victory. That's what they tried to take and couldn't." The light turned green. They drove forward, together, toward a future they were now building themselves. The system had failed Jeremiah. It had failed countless others. But under Commissioner Alana King, it was being rebuilt, not with revenge, but with justice. His pain, his lost decade, would now serve to protect countless others. That was the twist they never saw coming. This story, it isn't just about a thrilling plot twist. It's about the quiet, unbreakable strength of someone who refused to be defined by the box others tried to put her in. It's about how sometimes the people who seem the most powerless are actually the ones in control, because they're the ones who think and plan and hold on to their integrity when everyone else is losing theirs. Alana King used her mind as her weapon and her heart as her guide. She showed us that justice doesn't always come quickly, and the road to it is never, ever easy. It's paved with sacrifice and risk. But if you have the courage to stand up, even when you're standing alone, and the wisdom to know when to reach out for help from someone else who still believes in the light, justice can find a way. And sometimes that justice is so satisfying. Thank you for listening. Your support helps stories like this reach more listeners who crave that perfect moment when the villains realize they've been outsmarted. Don't miss our next jaw-dropping story. Subscribe to Unspoken Story and turn on notifications for more.